As part of the fast-moving and ever-evolving story of Infor CRM, they've already got a new major release on the table. And so we're showing you a very early release of that, so I'm going to apologize in advance if we find a bug or report or have something go wrong here. It is early beta software. Now, with that said, it is scheduled to be released in April, so we literally are talking within a week or so of this being available on the Extreme portal, so we hope that's the case. I can tell you I've been playing with it for a while. I haven't found any bugs in it, and so maybe that's a good sign that it will release on schedule. But anybody that's on maintenance and has access to the Extreme portal will be able to download this release when it becomes available officially. But we do love to show you this stuff early, so you know kind of what's coming and what to expect. So here's a screen that shows what are some of the high points of Infor CRM 8.2. And I'm going to show you some of this stuff. Some of it I can't because it's more back-end, but worth mentioning anyway. So the features that we're going to show is selectable language upon login, a new flyout nav bar, which I think is really cool. Recently viewed and saved records are now saved across sessions. I love that because I use that feature a lot. When I log into the system and spend the day navigating around, I tend to visit the same accounts and opportunities kind of over and over. But when I log out and log back in the next day, they're all gone from my recently viewed area. So those are now sticky and persistent, so they will remain available even after you log out and back in the next day. Love that. They also have added self-service reset password, and I forgot my login and password, which I'll show you. I think another feature that's long overdue. I'm thrilled that they have that capability now. Your users don't have to call IT to say, what's my password? I forgot what it was, or what have you. They can now do that themselves. They continue to add more browser compatibility, and they are finally going to support the 64-bit version of IE, which is great. They're also simplifying the desktop installation today for your users. You have to install the Outlook enhancements. That's one step. And then it's a separate procedure to get the XBAR installed. So they are now combining that into one single push the button, give me all this stuff, click, which is great. So now when they install the enhancements, they're not only going to get the calendar syncing and the save to history stuff that's part of the integration with Outlook, they're going to get the XBAR installed as well. Now the LAN did get some rebranding. I'm not going to brag about that too much because it's quite literally just a change over to Infor branding and away from Saleslogix. Bug fixes, which I like to call unrequested features. They always have a long list of what those are. I don't have that yet, but when that stuff becomes available, we always love to post that on our website. So you'll see that kind of thing show up when it becomes available. Now, some other neat features they're adding is the ability to manage filters, which I'm going to show you for KPIs and dashboards. There's a new group management interface. Love that. They've also added a really nice account and contact import capability. Now, if you're using some of the newer versions, 8.0 and above, they do have a lead import wizard. That's always been there, but now they've extended that to be able to import accounts and contacts, and I'm going to show you that today. Something I can't show you is that web form support for XBAR and mobile. Well, what does that mean? Well, today, you can't modify XBAR at all. It is what it is out of the box. And mobile can be modified, but you have to know, HTML5. It's very definitely developer level task to get the mobile client to be modified. That story is changing. So they're now allowing you at least some of the forms in mobile and the XBAR contact card screen are now exposed in the application architect. So you're able to make changes and then release those changes into production So it's a very similar development story to the current web client. It's my understanding it's not all there yet, but some of the main screens are going to be available to be modified easily, which I think is fantastic. They've also made some changes to the job manager. That's definitely a workhorse service that's happening back on your server. It has a lot of responsibilities for some back-end data processing jobs like rolling over activities, things like that. And they're finding that that's getting a little overworked, so they're improving the robustness of the job manager and also add some failover support, so if it just dies, it'll kind of self-restart. They've also added user auditing, and this is a feature we get asked about a lot. And it's a simple answer to a question is, are my users logging into the system? And so there is now an audit table in the administrator that stores who's logging in and who's logging out and when. They've also made some changes. I'll be honest, I don't know what this means. I haven't seen the application architect yet. And then they're removing some implementation steps from the installation. It is kind of a pain to get the whole thing up and running, so I'm glad to see that they're addressing and trying to make that a little more streamlined for you. Again, don't know what that means yet, but obviously they're spending some time and attention on it. So once A2 is officially released, I think you can plan on us having another similar kind of a webinar like this where we'll show you some more of this back-end stuff and what's changed. Just can't show it to you today. Okay, so let's get started with the changes, and the first one happens on the login screen. And one thing you'll notice is I now, as a user, can pick what language I want the interface to show up in. We've always supported multilingual interfaces. Now a user can pick and choose based on their preference upon login, what language do I want to see the interface in. And you'll also see here that I have some links to say, I forgot my username. So you'll be asked to put in your email, and it'll email you your Infor CRM username. I forgot my password. I do this all the time. I have so many darn passwords I have to try to remember. I love the fact that I can get the system to reset my password for me and send me what it is, and then I can change it to whatever I want it to be. So some really long overdue stuff that I'm thrilled to see that they've added into the application. Should help out. Okay, so let's get signed in. And one of the first things I want to show you is this little push pin up on the nav bar. Well, why is that there? So right now I'm running it in the same mode you're used to. That is, the nav bar is always there. It's always occupying this small slice of your screen on the left-hand side. But if I don't want it to be pinned, I can hide it. And you'll notice that I've got these little horizontal dashes now, and that brings back the nav bar. And if I click away, it sort of vanishes off to the side again. And so if you want to use this as your nav bar configuration, if I was to go away from the welcome screen, click on accounts, the nav bar goes away, and yes, then the account view shows up. So you can see that it definitely is an advantage in that it allows more of your screen real estate to be usable within the interface if you don't want to stare at that nav bar. Love that feature. So let's talk about the next one, which is the import capability for accounts and contacts. As I mentioned, you've always been able to do that with leads, but now they've built a very slick import tool specifically for contacts and accounts. So you'll notice it's been added over here, import, under the common tasks area. And if I bring that up, it starts to interrogate me through this little wizard here on the screen. So if I click on a CSV file with some names and addresses and so forth in it, it'll bring those in, and it uploads it to the system. And then it also lets me choose a template. So you can build templates of field mappings and reuse those. So if you're constantly getting, a file from Constant Contact or something like that, and you want to periodically update the same structure, you can save a template, and it makes it really easy to do that. So we clicked on Next, and now it's just asking me what's the delimiter and it already chose comma. So it is, I'm agreeing that it's presenting the data to me in a logical fashion here. I can also tell it that the first row does or doesn't contain the labels of the columns. And then when I click next, now we're into the field mapping area. And so what it's telling me is, of the 5 fields in the source file, it was able to figure out that, okay, first name goes to the contact, first name, last name, last name. So it was smart enough to know that fields of the same name in the source and the target database, I know where those fields go, but it also says, well, there's a couple of them, I don't know where they go. So there was a registration date field in the source data, and we can now choose, and this is actually looking at all of the fields in the contacts table. And in addition to that, if I keep scrolling down, I'm doing this pretty quickly here, you'll get into some of the address stuff. Now, this is very typically what you would be importing into contacts, is names, phone numbers, and addresses. So it does have a join to the address table in here, so that any address fields that belong in there, you're going to be able to map those. And also, if you've got any custom fields in the core table, those are going to show up in here as well. Okay, so we'll go to the next screen. And so now, this is what I really got excited about, is that what it allows me to do is, okay, what do I do with the data when it's coming in? And I have 3 choices. I can go ahead and add the record if it doesn't find a match. It's a net new record, doesn't exist in my database today. But I can also update the record. Wonderful. This is great, because maybe the new record is a match, but it was missing their address or something like that. So it is going to find the matching record based on the criteria that you choose down here. And upon finding the match, it's either going to add it, if no match, update it with any net new data, if there's new data in the source file, or both. And I would think most of the time you're going to choose both. Add a new record if it's not there, update the record if it's already there and it contains net new data in my source file. So you can play around with what fields it's using to match on. So that's what these drop-downs are doing. And just pick and choose a few here that probably don't make sense. You can pick the default owner, and you can create a new ad hoc group or add these records to an existing group. So it'll build a group for you on the way in. Okay, so once you hit next, it's going to go ahead and say, yes, I'm ready to go, everything's good, and it'll go ahead and import all the records for you. So I showed this to you on the contact level, but it will do the same thing on the account level. So you can import both accounts and contacts through our little wizard here. Pretty neat stuff. The next thing I want to show you, we're going to get into more of the admin functions here. And the first one I want to show you is the filter manager. Well, what's a filter? And filters are what shows up on the right-hand side of all of the main entity views. So whether you're in accounts or contacts or leads, opportunities, or tickets, you're always going to have these little quick filters over on the right-hand side. And so this new filter manager allows you to control what fields in the database you want to make available to your users to post filter on. And so there's a couple of things I need to explain. These are the fields that you said they can filter on, but the field itself, you can see accountant, account manager, city, industry owner, that kind of thing. You have to include these fields in the actual layout of the group that you're on, and it's that way today. So even though all these fields I've made eligible to be post filters or quick filters, I still have to have that field in the group in order for me to then, filter on that. And it works that way today, no difference there. I'm explaining what you already know. But what's great is in previous versions, you had to get into the application architect. You had to go into the entity and you had to get a developer to modify this area of the system. So they've made this more of an administrative chore now rather than a developer chore, because it's very easy now to add new eligible filters to the quick filters area of any entity that's in the system. So some of your choices are, if a user selects this new filter I'm adding, is it distinct, or can I put in a range, or do you want to pop down a lookup? So those are your options there, and then you can pick, well, what field is it in the database? So you can see that you're presented with all of the tables and fields that, because we started at the account here, everything related to the account entity is available to you to build a quick filter from. So that's what we're looking at, is the whole list of all the tables and fields that are joined to the account, and I can pick any of those and make them an eligible filter. What else can you do? We have metrics. Now, metrics are what the dashboards use. So the dashboards are built from these filters. And so I can look at account, and so now any account entity dashboard that your users are trying to build, these are the metrics that you can use. Again, this in and of itself is not new. You've always been able to do this, except now you can add new metrics on the fly right from this interface, so that your users who are building new dashboards can select these metrics to build their dashboards from. So again, a very nice simplification, less for IT developers to do, and it moves this functionality into more of an admin role, which I think is great. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show you here was the group manager, another feature we get a lot of requests for. Groups are a big part of the value of Infor CRM, but managing those groups can be a bit of a chore. Some of our customers have hundreds of groups, and it's kind of hard to get a handle on what is going on with all of the groups. So what we're looking at here is, here's all the groups in our system, and you can see they're organized by family, which is the entity that they're tied to. And then as you click them down below, I'll bring this up a little bit here, some additional details about that group are displayed. What's the entity table? Who built this group? Is it shared, yes or no? So you see stuff like that. When was it added? What version were we on when we added it? So that's just some nice information to have. Now, we're looking at the All Accounts group, and you'll notice I have another tab up here called Shares. So everybody's probably familiar with the fact that somebody else can build a group and then share it with you. The downside to that is that, yes, it's shared, and I can click on the tab and see the group, but I can't edit it because I don't own it. So that's another capability they added here, is the ability to change the ownership of the group. So an administrator can build a group for you. Today they could share it, but now they're also able to actually give ownership of that group to another user, which I think is a very powerful feature. So you can change the ownership of the groups. I can also see the usage of the groups. So if part of your general housekeeping you want to see, well, I've got 100 groups, but which ones are people even using? Can we get rid of some? So this helps you answer that question, because this will show you how often the group is used. So you can see that this active contract group has been used 3 times. It was first used by the administrator and then last used by the administrator. So this gives you insight into what groups can I get rid of, which ones don't we need anymore, because nobody's using them and they're just cluttering up the interface. So I love that capability as well. Very cool stuff. All right, well, Bree, that was everything I was hoping to show today, or really can show you today. There is a lot more to 8.2, as you saw in that screenshot in the beginning, but just wondering if there's any questions on anything we saw so far.
Yeah, Scott, we do have some questions. The first one I have is in regards to XBAR, and is combining XBAR and Desktop Manager into one install. Will this mean the support, oh, I'm sorry, does this support Windows Terminal where users do not have admin install rights?
I don't know if I can answer that today. I haven't seen the software yet. Today they do have to have admin rights to do that. I don't know if this new version is going to get around that at all. That is a common concern that we hear about. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer today for that question.
All right. Our next question is in regards to the LAN client. Wondering if the import feature is available on the LAN client or if any of the other features in today's presentation are available in the LAN client in 8.2.
I haven't seen the 8.2 LAN client yet, but my sense is probably not. That would be my guess, is that it's not in there.
All right, our next question has to do with groups. And does the group usage show previous usage or just after the upgrade?
Great question. I don't know for sure, but here's what I think is true. Because they did have to add some new tables and some new business rules under the hood to drive that usage parameter, my guess is you're not going to see that in an upgraded system. I would guess that you're only going to start to see usage statistics here after you've been using 8.2 for a while, because the data that it's pulling, I do not believe is in any earlier versions.
Okay. Our next question is, will any modifications made in version 7.5 be able to be copied easily to this new version?
That's a loaded question. Easily is always very subjective. Generally speaking, when you're upgrading, if it's custom views and custom tabs, those are traditionally immune from an upgrade, meaning they will generally work just fine. When you get into modifying out-of-the-box screens, you're always going to have to do some kind of a comparison and recreate your customization. So if you've modified the account detail view, for example, the system is going to put in a new account detail view. You can put your old 7.5 screen in place of that, or what we tend to recommend is that you just add your changes back to the new 8.2 view. So the answer is always, it could be any one of these answers, and it's always a case by case.
All right. Our next question is, are all of these features discussed for the cloud web version also available in the installed in-house version? So so you can clarify for somebody who might not have heard.
They are. 8.2 is 8.2. Whether it's installed and deployed on the cloud or on-premise, it is the same. Typically, cloud users are behind in their ability to request an update. So usually, and I'll guess if we kind of history repeats itself here, 8.2 is going to be available to on-premise clients first, and then usually within a few weeks or a month later, it becomes available for cloud.
All right. Now our next question is about the language options. And with the different language options, how are the custom fields and labels translated?
Well, every one of the views, and I'm not a developer, so I'm probably not going to successfully answer this, but every one of the views in the system have multi-language support. And so depending on which language you choose, it's going to release that language translation and change the labels of all the fields. I'll show you this here. I think I picked Russian, but I'm not sure. So The system has always been multilingual, but you've never been able to choose the language you want upon login. And so here is a very strange looking system that I think is Russian, but I'm not sure. All right, any other questions?
Yep, a couple more popped up here. You didn't show anything about user auditing. Is there anything to show at this point?
I don't think so, but thank you for asking that question, and you're kind of helping me here. First of all, I've got to get back to English, if you can bear with me here, because I'm not going to be successful otherwise. So let's go back to English and get logged back in. Because the question is, where do I see the user auditing information? And I haven't seen the answer to that in the documentation, but I'm suspicious that it might be in the user table here. So let's take a look. We'll learn together. Okay, so let's pick on the administrator because we know they've logged in. See if I get a new tab or something here. My first suspicion was that it's in the administrator itself, but let's see. Oh, look at there, audit log. There you go. Thanks for asking. You forced me to look, and the answer is that the user login logout auditing is under the user area, and I see that there is a new tab called the audit log, and there you go. It shows my IP address, what browser was I using, when did I log in, when did I log out. Very cool. There you go.
All right, Scott, we just had another question pop up, and that is, does this product replace Saleslogix?
It absolutely does, yeah. Infor bought Saleslogix as a company and as a product. So they bought the company called Saleslogix, and along with that came their product called Saleslogix. So Infor CRM is the rebranding and the redevelopment of Saleslogix. So they took what they had when they bought it and are making it better at a furious rate. They are improving it substantially. So Saleslogix doesn't exist anymore. It's now been rebranded to Infor and is owned by Infor.
And we have another LAN question, Scott. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this right now, but will the logging, the user, I think that audit, will the logging be available when users log in and out of the LAN client?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't have access to the LAN client for 8.2 yet. That's a great question, but I don't know if it records for the LAN also. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
And then how long will Saleslogix as it is be supported?
The LAN or the web?
Well, that isn't specified here. I think a lot of, with the rebranding in 8.1.05 and then definitely 8.2, I think they're just wondering how long, people who are in 7.5.4, whether LAN or web would be supported, which I don't know that we have an answer to that quite yet, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I can tell you that at the Infor conference last November, they had said that the LAN client would be supported for at least 2 more years. And then, they've been highly successful with this web client and getting wonderful reviews from consulting firms and then users also. So we see it being hopefully a very long-term product. No signs of it going anywhere but up.
Our next question is, will mail merge be supported when using Chrome?
Nope, it's not on the radar for now. Sorry, nope,
Well, Scott, that was the last question right now. So